Hey everyone, Vance from the Gleemen here today, back with yet another Quickie, and today I want to talk about why I think you should read The Wheel of Time. Before we jump right in, I do want to go ahead and talk about a few things. Number one, this was mentioned on my channel update, but we have a podcast now. It's called The Gleemen. It's available on virtually all the big podcast platforms, so go ahead and search us up out there. We've got a few episodes coming out. An episode should have just dropped as of today when I'm filming. So yeah, go ahead, tune in, check it out. They're relatively short episodes, just about some of them are 40 minutes, others are like 25, 30. So, it just depends. It can be a shorter podcast for you if you're one of those short commute folks. Next, I want to go ahead and do a further shout out to thegreatblight.com. That's nae'blis' website that he's trying to get up and running for Wheel of Time fan content. Drew and I have a creator page over there for the Gleemen, as do multiple other creators. He's trying to get more involvement from other fans who may not necessarily be content creators. So say you don't want to be a content creator like in the traditional sense. You don't want to do videos, you don't want to do a podcast, you don't want to write music about the Wheel of Time, you don't necessarily want to write blog posts and research papers about it. Well, he's looking for people who can at least be wiki editors. So you can go ahead, stop over, apply for that, see what they need over there, because the wiki is going to be pretty awesome, especially for first-time readers and people new to the series when the show launches. That's ultimately the goal of The Great Blight, is to kind of congregate all of the conversation around the show when it comes out, I think. And I'm totally down with that, especially as the wiki will be spoiler gated for those who have not read up to a certain point, which is a unique feature not found pretty much anywhere else. Also, if you do want to be someone like a blog contributor or an article writer, there's a role for you there too. nae'blis has a blogger role that you can go apply for. You will need to have at least one blog post written so they can review your work and check your application. But other than that, if you want to get involved, that's a couple of ways. You can also always go support him on Patreon, which is a fantastic way to directly support that project. And with those announcements out of the way, let's get into the video. What is The Wheel of Time, you ask? The Wheel of Time is a 14-book epic fantasy series by Robert Jordan. It is 15 if you count the prequel novel, which more and more people are doing these days. However, it's not required to understand the main section of the story. So what is the main concept of the Wheel of Time that sets it apart from other fantasy series? Number one, it has various Eastern philosophical and religious influences in it. So instead of being the traditional European medieval fantasy where there are knights and dragons and blah, 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 this one takes place in a world that is similar to our own, but a little bit different, in a time period reminiscent of the late Renaissance, early modern period. You do kind of get a little bit of medieval-y feel at the very beginning, but that's just because our main characters are from the backwoods and technological progress is slow there. What concepts separate the Wheel of Time from other fantasy series? Instead of a linear vision of time, as we find very common in the modern world of fantasy, we see a cyclical, repeating nature of time, similar to what's found in Hinduism or Buddhism. Also, we see a strong emphasis on duality, specifically the dualistic nature of the source of the magic, duality between male and female, duality between good and evil, so on and so forth. To do this, he borrows a lot from religions such as Zoroastrianism or Taoism, both of which are focused on this dualistic nature of the universe. Alright, with that little primer out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the first reason you should read The Wheel of Time. The first reason is that The Wheel of Time takes old, possibly tired fantasy tropes and elevates them to the next level, pushing them to their absolute maximum boundary of where they logically make sense while keeping it relatively realistically grounded in how normal people would react to the situations around them. For example, the Chosen One trope is often derided as tired and overdone. However, Jordan has this trope within the series, and what he does with it is utterly amazing. He pushes the trope past its reasonable boundaries that we've seen previously and puts someone who feels like a real person within the role. We get to see a small psychological case study of how a regular person may actually react when they are told, hey, you're the chosen one and you're going to both save the world and destroy it. So have fun with that, bud. The second trope that Jordan has within the series that is masterfully done is the Magic Academy. The Magic Academy in this case is known as the White Tower, and it is where all of the female magic users in the world reside. That's right, female. The male magic users within this series are considered dangerous, and they go crazy from using magic. So magic is concentrated in the hands of females, and they wield considerable power within this series. The White Tower, which is quite possibly the best Magic Academy I've ever seen put to page, is very fleshed out throughout the series. It has a very interesting student, apprentice, and mastership structure. Further, not only is the Magic Academy a school, it is a seat of political power within the world, not unsimilar to what you could compare with the Vatican City, especially in its heyday. And of course, the next trope, good versus evil, is often overdone within fantasy literature. We so many times have gotten such an oversimplified vision of what good and evil are. However, Jordan does not take this route. Jordan, while acknowledging that there are absolute goods and absolute evils that humans moralistically seem to agree on universally, he also has very much a spectrum of who is good and who is evil, to the point where this plays into the trope of good is not always nice and bad is not always mean. In fact, there are multiple examples of good characters committing outright atrocities. Second reason you should read The Wheel of Time. It starts off as a pretty simple hero's journey, but it grows into something so much larger. At the beginning of the series, we're really only focused in on about 2 or 3 main protagonists, but as we move on book by book, more and more point of views are added, to the point where we have a large cast of characters, many of whom we come into and they're already fully completed characters. They have no more development to go within them, or we come into more characters who will develop throughout the series. Truly, the character work within the series on the hero's journey is one of the best aspects of the Wheel of Time. I often tell people that if you come across a character point of view you just don't really jive with, just keep reading, because you're bound to hit one eventually that you're gonna like. Moving on to reason number 3 you should read the Wheel of Time. Going back to the characters, they are all well realized and very deep. This is often held up as one of the core strengths of the series. The fact that even characters who are quote-unquote shallow have more depth to them than some other fantasy series main characters. It's truly amazing that you can feel like when you meet a side character that they are a person living within this world and not just some set piece that is wandering around. Even the weaker characters, some of whom may or may not be lamps, have quite a bit of depth to them, and the fact that we can even argue whether or not they are just a set piece shows just how well Jordan crafted his characters. Reason number 4 you should read The Wheel of Time. As I kind of touched on earlier in the beginning of the video, the philosophical and religious ideologies that were used to inspire the Wheel of Time. This is one of my favorite aspects of the series, looking at the various ideas, mythologies, cultures that Jordan looked at from our real history and kind of built this thought experiment for himself of how would this look if certain things were rearranged or certain groups of people were geographically displaced into a different area. What would culture look like if it developed upon a through line? He didn't just sit here and make up these people and say this is the way they were. No, he actually had a plan of this is where these people started and this is where they ended. And it's quite an amazing experience to read through. Moving on from cultures, the Eastern philosophical and religious traditions that Jordan pulled from to create the cosmology of the Wheel of Time are done in such a way that it feels almost completely unique. It's not like anything we have in the real world, while still bearing similarities to what we can find in our world. Interestingly enough, if you take a comparative mythological approach, you can see that Jordan did quite a bit of research on things such as the Proto-Indo-European religion, Proto-Hinduism and Buddhism, as well as all of these other early periods within these philosophical and religious traditions. So while often praised for its Eastern mythological inclusions, the Wheel of Time also does include its fair share of Western mythologies, religious ideas, and philosophical traditions. Moving from cultures back to philosophy and religious influences, while Jordan did have a significant influence of Eastern thought, as I mentioned earlier in the video, let's not downplay the importance of the European mythologies and philosophical ideals that he placed within the Wheel of Time. One of the largest sources he pulls from are Arthurian legend, specifically the Welsh versions of the stories, more so than the later anglicized versions. Jordan also pulled quite a bit from Irish Gaelic mythology. The word Aes Sedai has there's a very similar word. I believe it's called the Eyes Seed, I think, in Irish, but I don't speak Irish Gaelic, so don't hate me for that one. But yeah, and they were originally called that, and he changed it to Sedai later on. Not only that, the Irish Gaelic concept of an other world is represented within the Wheel of Time, as are versions of the Fae. Several characters also have parallels to various mythological deities, such as Odin from Norse and Germanic mythology, and Perun from Slavic mythology. And of course, it would not be complete if there was not some references to the Abrahamic religions within the world, and there are plenty of allusions to various points, characters, and parables from that tradition as well. So if this isn't enough to get you excited about reading this series, there's one more point I have on this list that I hope will get your attention. Number 5, it's going to be a TV show. That's right, you heard it right here and probably everywhere else before this video. It's going to be a television show on Amazon, developed jointly by Amazon and Sony Pictures Television. If you start reading the first book of the series, The Eye of the World, right now, you can be done in time for season 1. But why stop there? Go ahead and pick up The Great Hunt and continue on, because there's talk that they're going to be merging some aspects from books 1 and 2, as well as the prequel, though I don't recommend you read that right now, into the first season. This is an exciting time to be a Wheel of Time fan. I'm assuming this must be what Game of Thrones fans felt like, not Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire fans felt like when the A Game of Thrones TV show was being developed back 10 years ago. So truly, I hope that some of these points have helped you decide to pick up the Wheel of Time. If not, that's fine. Just I hope you tune in for the TV show on Amazon Prime when it comes out. That about wraps it up for this video, everyone. Go ahead and like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you can get more notifications when I release Wheel of Time content, and I will see you next time.